Namaste, everyone. I am so grateful to be here with you all in our Yoga for Mental Health group. Please let me know in the comments. Just let me know that this is all coming through. I'm using a new camera and a new mic. And as I mentioned on Instagram, I'm going to be going live in this Facebook group for mental health and yoga every day indefinitely. I think that it's really important that we keep nourishing ourselves and coming together as a community. And I am really inspired. I am really called to be in service in the greatest way possible and show up for this community, show up for you guys, really help us get through as a global family this crisis that we're in, this pandemic that we're in with COVID-19. So it's more clear than ever before that our mental emotional health is absolutely paramount. And when we have a global crisis or any kind of personal crisis, we are, I like to say it's a term from depth psychology, we're called into a threshold of initiation. We are in a time right now that is a threshold of our initiation. We are being initiated into so many things, but a new level of awareness, so many aspects of our society, our lifestyle, our consciousness are becoming clear. And we can use any crisis as an opportunity to wake up even more. And that, of course, is the call of yoga. That is the call of Buddhism. That is the call of any spiritual practice, is that no matter what arises in our life, we use it as an opportunity to learn our soul lessons. What happens in moments like this is that it becomes very clear. Our patterns are revealed to us. We get to see what we're made of. We get to see how we show up in situations that are deeply stressful, that are deeply painful, how much we tend to buy into collective consciousness, or how easy it is for us to center and anchor into our own truth, into our own core. So all of these things are opportunities. I like to say in my yoga psyche soul training, I love that Joanne saying, grow through what we go through. I've never heard that slogan before. Grow through what we go through. Beautiful. Thank you, Joanne, for that. I like to say in my yoga psyche soul training, your life is your curriculum. Your life is your curriculum. So you don't need to pick up any books. You don't need to study with any teachers. All you need to do is show up and be present for your life. So this is happening. This is absolutely a global crisis. This is a pandemic, and most likely, by all accounts, we will be living with the reality of COVID-19 coronavirus for probably several months, if not more, maybe 6 to 12 months. And it's radically changing our lifestyle. It's changing our lifestyle, and we are mobilized as a global community more than certainly anything that I have seen in my lifetime. And for most of us, I think the closest thing would be September 11th. And then before that, probably World War II, when the global population was mobilized around certain initiatives. So there's a lot of goodness there. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of places that we can see the optimism of how quickly we can activate and mobilize as a global family. There is obviously also a lot of fear, panic, anxiety, and this is what I want to talk to you about today. So I'm going to offer you a 3-step process. As I said, for those of you that are just jumping on, I'm going to be on these Facebook Lives every single day indefinitely to offer you a different tool, a different resource. And my biggest intention is to cultivate wisdom, is to help each and every one of you guys watching to cultivate wisdom inside of yourself, to strengthen your own resources, your own resilience, and to offer you practical tools that you can use in your life to cultivate your own mental and emotional and spiritual and physical health, and that you can also teach and offer to your students, to your clients, to your kids, to your parents, to your family. So my intention is to offer tools that are deeply spiritual and psychological, but also very accessible. So this is a teaching from Buddhism, and some of you know that I'm in the middle of a 2-year mindfulness and meditation training with my teachers, Tara Brock and Jack Cornfield. And as I was thinking about what to offer today, it's so important right now that we address the wave of fear and panic that we might be experiencing. The tendency is, for most of us, I would say it's universal, we seek pleasure and we avoid pain. And that means that when we feel anything that's pleasurable, we open up, we move towards it. When we feel anything, and that can create addictive patterns and preferences, attachments. And then when we experience anything that's painful or a struggle, we tend to constrict and we resist and we pull away from it. So that is just the core teaching of yoga, of Buddhism. In Buddhism, it says that that's the root of suffering, is that we're seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. Therefore, we have attachments to when things are a certain way that we deem positive, and we have resistance, aversion to things when they're not going the way we want. Right now, most of us are experiencing a level of resistance, of tension, of, again, angst, fear, panic. And I really want to speak to the fact that this is one of the reasons that this is so core, just like with 9/11, is because it is forcing us to face our own mortality. We are facing the reality of death. And in the yoga tradition, it's said that there are 5 primary aversions. And those are 5 obstacles in our mind, which are called the kleshas, Klesha, the kleshas. And one of them is we have a tendency towards pleasure, we have a resistance towards pain, we identify with our separate self. But the biggest, most important, the root klesha, and all the other ones spiral around that, is our fear of death. And that fear of death guides everything in our lives. And so when we have a situation like COVID-19 that is a collective mass pandemic, we are all being faced at the very root with our fear of death. Fear of death of ourselves, our own health and well-being, survival, but also the fear of death of our loved ones, maybe parents, elderly people, people that you know that have a comorbidity, a diagnosis of diabetes or heart disease or high blood pressure, cancer, anything that would put someone at higher risk. And so our very most primal instinct is activated. Protection, fear, grocery stores, going out of stock of everything because there's this heightened attachment, grabbing on to what we can try to control. The root of this fear is that we cannot control anything. In our lives, there's very, very little that we can control. We can control our own reaction and response, and that's about it. We can't control our loved ones. We certainly can't control whether we get sick or not. We can't control the stock market. We can't control what's happening in our communities. We can't really control the larger public health systems or political systems. And so it's really important that we look at where we go when we feel fear. So I'd like to invite you to tune in and drop in, and feel free to close your eyes for a moment if you wish. And let's just take a couple deep breaths together. And exhale everything completely. And inhale. And exhale everything completely. And inhale. Last one, exhaling. Take a moment to scan your body, mind, and just notice what you notice first. Neutral, witness mind, just observe. Notice if you might feel tension in any part of your body or freedom. Notice if you're feeling maybe a little constricted. And what I would love for you to do as we work with fear right now, cultivating fearlessness, cultivating wisdom, is to first think of one specific thing that brings you stress, that brings you angst or anxiety or fear. And yes, we're living in this big COVID-19 pandemic, but I'd love for you to choose one specific thought form or incident that really triggers you. So again, maybe it's that a loved one is going to pass away. Maybe you're not so worried about your own resilience and health. Maybe it's that you've watched your retirement account drop by 30% in the last 2 days and you're feeling that financial insecurity. Maybe it's that you are worried about your children or your ability to sustain your family for the next few months. Maybe you're worried about getting sick and getting COVID-19 and potentially dying. So choose one thing that's sort of the hottest iron in the fire for you right now. And with your eyes closed or open, just sit with that. This is your companion, this thought. And notice what your inner experience is. So the first step in this bodhicitta practice is to notice when you're triggered, is to notice when you're aggravated. So I'd like for you to identify physiologically in your body, where do you feel that? I would say I am feeling most concerned about getting sick and also the financial impact of what we're working with right now. And I feel the tension in my back. I feel the tension between my shoulder blades. I feel a shortness of breath. I feel edgy, irritable. I've gotten in some big arguments with my partner the last few days, which is extremely unpleasant. And that makes me, I'm feeling sad about that. So just take a moment to first identify. And you might feel a red hot energy. You might feel an icy cold numbness. And now the second step of this bodhicitta practice. And this is a practice of, it's a slogan called training with 3 difficulties. Training with the 3 difficulties. And this is a bodhicitta practice. And so the instruction is first to acknowledge our neurosis as neurosis. So just observe, maybe there's one word that you can name. Maybe you can name fear, or you can name financial insecurity, or you can name, health concern, or you can name anxiety. And simply acknowledge it as what it is. It's fear, it's anxious, it's neurosis, it's a thought form. And the second step of this is to interrupt the pattern. So in psychotherapy, we might call it, in cognitive behavioral therapy, replacement therapy, where you're choosing to interrupt the pattern. You could call it pattern interrupt, that you choose to do something different. From the yogic perspective, one of the most powerful tools is to create a different state, a different physiology. So when you notice you're triggered, you acknowledge, you name your neurosis as neurosis, name your fear, notice how it feels in the body, and then 2, choose something different. So maybe it's smiling, maybe it's getting up, going outside and walking around the block or running around the block. Maybe it's putting on music and dancing. Maybe it's praying and offering it up. Maybe it's going to a loved one and giving them a hug and giving support. Maybe it's imagining the opposite. It's a very powerful practice, neti, imagining the opposite of what that is. So take a moment to consider how you could interrupt that pattern, how you could do something differently. Most likely, when you feel that trigger and you respond to that trigger, you respond habitually. So if my partner were here right now, he would say that I go to him and I bring up these conversations and I'm going to him. I want to have a plan. I want to understand our financial plan. because I am getting triggered. And then I'm badgering and tenacious, and it starts to spiral into this pattern. So, how can I interrupt that pattern and do something different? Maybe it's leaving the room. Maybe it's going for a walk when I feel that trigger instead of going into his office and talking to him about it. Instead, it's calling someone else or going for a walk outside or journaling and writing it out. How can you interrupt, that pattern? And then the third step of training with the 3 difficulties, this is a way of working with fear and transmuting the fear, is to aspire to continue practicing in this way, is to seek and practice and aim to continue practicing and make a statement and a commitment to yourself to continue consistently showing up and interrupting this pattern. So that we acknowledge when we're churned up, we acknowledge this first and most difficult step that we're getting triggered. And we have compassion. We understand. Instead of getting judgmental or automatic reactivity, we soften. We have compassion. Of course we're scared. Of course we're panicked. Of course we're worried about our loved ones. We're human, right? But then we aim and we aspire to do something differently, to break that pattern, to break that. In yoga psychology, we call it the samskara. Samskara is like a habitual groove or pattern. I think of it like a groove in consciousness. If you imagine the brain tissue has all of that gray matter weaving up and down, and this is like a groove in that gray matter. It's a neural pathway that our thoughts continue to go down. So we interrupt that ancient habit of indulging in whatever that emotion is, and we choose to interrupt the flow. So anything that can cut your spin. So for the moment, please notice in your own life, what is one of the most effective tools for you to interrupt that pattern? Is it nature? Is it physicality? Is it, again, journaling is a great way to channel moving your body in a certain way. Anything that's non-habitual. Singing, dancing. Maybe you're like me and you've been watching CNN and the news every single night. Maybe your pattern interrupt is to watch something else or go read a book at night instead of getting sucked in, right? So the essence of the practice is always the same, that instead of falling prey to this chain reaction, we can choose wisdom. In the yogic tradition, wisdom is called vidya, Vidya, vidya. We choose a wise response. We interrupt the pattern. We insert a pause. And we recognize that we're standing at a crossroads and we have a choice to indulge in that pattern, that neuroses, or to choose to interrupt it and play a different character. Just try playing a different thought form out, a different monologue in your head. It's kind of like WWJD, what would Jesus do? So that's a good practice, actually, to think about maybe an idol of yours or someone that you really admire, or Jesus or the Bodhisattva or the Buddha. What would they do? How would they respond in this situation? So I'm going to ask you to hone in on one, again, pattern interrupt, one thing that you can do differently when you get that trigger, and then share it in the comments over here. So please share it in the comments. What's that one thing that you can do differently? Maybe it's call someone else up and offer to support them. Maybe it's calling someone else and reaching out. Again, maybe it's doing something with your body. So go ahead and share in the comments that one thing that you're committed to do differently, to interrupt that chain reaction, to stop the spin. This requires discipline. This requires flexing the muscle of viveka, which is discernment, and focus, dharana. So we are choosing our thoughts wisely. And then bring your hands to your heart, one hand over the other, and just extend compassion, extend loving kindness towards yourself. Gentleness in your spirit, gentleness of understanding, and then hands to the heart. You can bow and just send this to one single person that you know that could use a little uplift, a little love. Maybe it's yourself, maybe it's someone that's struggling. And we'll finally end with a big offering to humanity and to this planetary awakening and consciousness, and everyone that's struggling and suffering, particularly those that are at risk, those that are very vulnerable populations. And we'll chant together Loka Samasta Sukhi no Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhi no Bhavantu. And it means Loka is like location, right here, right now. Location. Loka. Samasta is evenness, sameness, sam, S-A-M. So a steadiness. And sukhi no, sukha means ease or happiness. So loka samasta sukhi no bhavantu. It means may all beings be happy and free, and may the actions and thoughts of my own life contribute to that happiness and freedom for all beings. So we're going to chant it 3 times. Loka samasta sukhi no bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhi no bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhi no bhavantu. Blessings, blessings, blessings to you, to your loved one, to this entire human family. I may see some people over here stating their pattern interrupt. Someone saying they just went live on Facebook. Susan saying she just went live to offer resources. Joanne is saying that this is so perfect. She's offering a mindful march to her clients and students this week. And someone else is saying, I'm moving into gratitude. My pattern interrupt is gratitude instead of anxiety, which I love. I love that. And it really is true to focus on, how lucky we are and how grateful we are. And to really seek and train ourselves to see those reflections of light, of goodness, no matter what is happening. So I'm going to be back tomorrow. Please post in the comments any specific questions or resources you guys would like. And I'm going to be back every day indefinitely in here offering resources. This is your support system. This is a wellspring for you to come to and be nourished and stay centered and stay grounded. Let's cultivate wisdom. Let's cultivate selfless service. Let's wake up to our interdependence. And many, many blessings to all of you. Stay safe. I'm also going to be posting some other resources in here. So links and things that I've come across in my research for COVID-19, and some really incredible links and articles. So I'll be posting some of those intermittently on here as well. All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Oh, last thing. On Monday, I am doing a free webinar. This is for yoga teachers, coaches, wellness professionals, body workers, school teachers, anyone to learn some mental health skills. This is not to train you to be a therapist, but this is to train you to have a working knowledge of core mental health skills that you will want to help elevate your work in the world, your teaching, your expertise. And it's really important for us, no matter what your profession, truly, that you're working ethically with your coworkers, with your students, your clients. We need to understand some basics of psychology of mental health and how to work with people and help train them and educate them and help support them. So free webinar, I'm going to put the link in the caption. Also, the link is right below in the post right below. And I will see you on that on Monday, but I'll be back here tomorrow. Love you guys. Namaste.